This is Reimagining Our Region, your go-to podcast for regional insights and trends. Each episode brings together expert discussions on the challenges and the opportunities shaping the Middle East, from economic shifts to emerging technologies. I am Ayman Laghlid, partner at PwC Middle East.
And I'm Patricia Keating, Senior Manager at PwC Middle East. We'll explore how businesses in the Middle East are adapting to remain competitive, focusing on business model reinvention, sustainable growth, and the transformation needed to thrive in an evolving landscape. Cyber Monday globally marked a record. Sales reached over 13 billion, more than 7% year-over-year increase. Closer to home, GCC e-commerce and retail apps reported an almost 30% spike compared to the average Friday in November. Amazon's Middle East platform reported over 1 million items sold during Cyber Monday. However, headwinds of inflation, economic uncertainty are continuing to shape consumer behaviours right across the Middle East, pushing people towards a more value-driven purchase. At the same time, trust in brands and sustainability and the adoption of AI are all becoming key drivers of consumer loyalty. We have some incredible guests with us today. Ayman Beydoun, CEO of Brands for Less Group, and Roy Hintze, partner with us here at PwC Middle East. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, I know that we have a lot to talk about, and I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. We'll be talking about that economic volatility, AI, omnichannel, and of course, the vital role that data protection will play in maintaining that consumer loyalty. But before we dive in, I really would love to hear a little bit from you. I mean, we're delighted to have you with us here today. You're at the helm of one of the GCC's biggest retail success stories. Tell us a little bit about you personally and also the company that you lead.
Thank you so much, and thank you for hosting this. So I'm today officially basically having this as my first time being a CEO of Brands for Less Group. I've been with the group for the past 7 years, been part of a great growth and success journey. We started with around 23 stores in UAE. Today we run more than 120 stores across the region, in addition to our latest expansion to Singapore, and then hopefully next month to Malaysia. Prior to that, I've been managing sales and marketing in a completely different industry. It's wholesale, manufacturing, and then I had to move to London and then back to Dubai with the group. I cannot be more than happy in being part of the group's success, and looking forward to having this podcast.
All the building blocks for a CEO, absolutely.
Thank you.
Amazing. Roy, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned, I'm a partner at PwC. I've been with the firm for 9 years. I lead our consumer markets practice for our deal strategy and operations business, which includes sectors like retail, consumer goods, food and agri. I've been involved with supporting a number of companies and government entities here, mostly around investments and transactions, and was very actually lucky to be involved with Ayman and the Brands for Less Group in the recent transaction they went through. So very happy to be in this conversation with Ayman and yourself, and looking forward to the next 30 minutes or so.
Amazing. We'll jump into that recent expansion and new family member as part of Brands for Less in a minute. But before we do, we'll talk a little bit about the challenges. We've mentioned about inflation. There's a lot of economic uncertainty out there. And it means that consumers are being a little bit more cautious about how they're spending. There's impact on global growth, supply chains. I mean, you will know these problems intimately. What are the retailers doing to shift to adapt to these new consumer behaviours? And what role is trust playing in that, into your mind, as you're building out these new customer loyalty approaches during these challenging times?
No, absolutely. You rightly said that there are a lot of challenges, whether in supply chain, and obviously this all comes in affecting the consumer. Now, given that the concept that we currently operate within, which is the off-price concept, Brands for Less is positioned well, I'd say ahead of others, because we provide brands and sell brands at lower prices. So a consumer will always want a brand, but now he's getting a brand with a deal So we're giving a great deal to the consumer. So it plays in our favor. However, obviously you have challenges in supply chain, which we really need to be more efficient in addressing to give the best price to the customer, because that's what the customer expects. Now, obviously, we've built a certain brand loyalty. The consumer will always come to Brands for Less as long as we give them that great deal. Now, to do it, we have to go and make sure that the product is offered to them, but in a backward cycle, meaning we go down to the first purchase of that product, to how that product was shipped, how that product was cleared, how efficient the costs were managed, to be able to sell at a great deal. We've been working with a lot of partners as well into enhancing our operational efficiencies. We've been introducing AI and understanding trends when it comes to shipping costs and eventually inflation in supply chain cycles. And that's where we are trying to make sure we address these challenges proactively rather than reactively to be able to manage costs and obviously manage the selling price of items.
Yeah, when you're talking, I'm hearing value.
Yes.
Value for the customer and making sure that their money is being used in the best way possible. And a lot of that's happening behind the scenes. It's like an iceberg, I think. Yeah. Roy, what would you add to that?
Yeah, let me just add, I 100% agree with what Ayman's been saying. And this is further reflected in some of the responses we've received in our Voice of the Consumer survey that was launched earlier this year. No matter what dimensions you add, the top two things that consumers want are value for money, right? Irrespective of how you cut it and, shape it and so on, that discussion is always about value for money. And the second dimension is about quality of goods, right? And as long as retailers can work towards those, using any means, any technologies, if they're addressing those 2 points, they'll do well with attracting new customers and retaining existing ones.
It's interesting what you're saying there, because that value, being transparent about what you're doing, helping to build the trust, and the pricing component, obviously, that plays the part throughout that. But sustainability is also a factor, and retail is obviously something that's very visible to everyone. We receive all of these packages through our doors on a daily basis. But there is an indication that they are willing to pay for the premium prices. And I know some of the big fashion labels have done some things around this, right? Zara has released their brand, albeit a little discreetly. I think, we've seen a couple of good examples there. But what does this shift towards sustainability mean to the retailers? Roy, what is the Voice of the Consumer telling us?
Yeah, so it's interesting. The regional consumer finds climate a big issue. Around 40%, I think, consider it a risk. And that's actually about 5 percentage points more than what global consumers are saying. Now, what does that actually translate to? There is an indication from them that about 20% are saying that they're willing to pay more. Mm-hmm. Now, whether that actually translates to actual spend and a higher spend for those specific products, I think is yet to be seen. Maybe Ayman has a view on that. Yeah. But I think in all cases, the trend is there, which is even if today they're not willing to spend more, they are changing their behaviors in terms of what they're looking to purchase and which brands they're looking to purchase from. Looking at the logistics from manufacturing all the way to getting the product to the consumer's doorstep, this needs to be thought through. And making sure that those brands understand that their footprint is important to consumers making decisions, particularly in this region.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we know what the Voice of the Consumer is saying, but what are they actually doing? What are you observing in your data?
Yeah, I think there are 2 or 3 different verticals. One, Brands for Less being the last channel within the supply chain, because we give products a second life. Yeah. Rather than brands just dumping off those products, we say, listen, guys, we're going to buy them and we're going to sell them at a great value. Mm-hmm. Now, we follow what brands do because at the end of the day, we are at the end of that cycle. However, we have our own licenses and our own private labels. That's not a big business. However, it's a good business for BFL, where we've tried to introduce sustainable products. Obviously, sustainable packaging, that comes without saying. That's something we've already initialized and have seen the impact on environment and through our ESG reports. But within the product range and within the product vertical, when we've tried to introduce sustainable products for around 7% more expensive pricing because of the higher costs involved, we've seen a slightly better sell-through of those products. Now, is this equal or is the appetite higher than what we've produced or what we've loved to sell out of that production? No. Today, we've seen some positive approach to sustainability, but not to an extent where we can say that the consumer will be willing to pay that extra 7%. So it might be 2, 3, 4% we're testing today. And the good thing is that the consumer changes in each and every market, and so its behavior.
Yeah.
I mean, in countries like Singapore, for example, they are more cautious about it. And we've seen a higher sell-through than in this part of the world, without getting into the details of each of the countries. But I think consumer behavior changes in each of those markets. So we're yet to see the full awareness of the consumer on sustainable products, but we've seen an improvement, I'd say.
Good signals. Yeah, I think that's encouraging.
Maybe just to add to that, the other thing that is an opportunity, I believe, in this part of the world, particularly for multi-brand retailers like Brands for Less, is to consider locally produced products as well. I think, obviously having locally produced products means you're not relying on a global supply chain. There's less footprint there. And that's, I think, an opportunity for not only the retailers, but specifically some new brands, new manufacturers, be it on the beauty side, on the fashion side, to actually generate new opportunities and new brands and new products for this part of the world.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. I think it's a great point, and sustainability and understanding where you can introduce it in your supply chain requires data and intelligence. And we're going to segue nicely into our favorite topic, artificial intelligence. It is transforming industries, right? When we're all using it daily, whether we're consciously using it or unconsciously. And I think this is something I'd really like to talk to you guys about. It is it's been introduced through the customer service channels, through the customer experience, predictive analytics, and of course automation through the logistics side. But how are you seeing the Middle East consumers responding to maybe the above the line experience of AI, let's say, and then of course there's the below the line where you're introducing it, and it's not actually directly maybe touching them, but it is influencing what they're doing. Ayman, tell us what's going on in AI.
I think AI, automation, robotics have played a great factor in BFL's success, whether it's in the back end or the front end. Now, obviously, we've tried things in the front end. We failed. We've tried again. We failed. Yeah. But then we've succeeded.
Any will know?
I'll give you some examples now. But before jumping into that, I think within the back end today, whether it's our warehouses fully backed up by automation, robotics, and AI, and the actual AI word, rather than the one that's spread across every mouth today. But I'd say that all the pricing today in BFL at least is done dynamically through AI, through understanding previous customers' habits, previous customers' purchases, and forecasting trends and habits, and then aligning that pricing into what the expectations of the customers is. So a lot of allocation, because allocation of a product is something that's quite very important to off-price. So allocating the right product to the right channel and to the right store at the right price. The whole cycle of allocation is 100% automated within the business. Again, making sure that we send the right product and be able to sell that product to the right customer as well. So the whole ecosystem of BFL, I'd say from the back end, is fully automated and powered by AI, whether in the warehouses or in the stores through the POS. But obviously, we tried things. We tried smart mirrors. We wanted to be trendy, but then that's not the field. So let's focus on the bread and butter of the business, giving a great deal at a great price and at the right channel and to the right customer. Yeah. So you've got hundreds of thousands of different products within Brands for Less, and you won't find the same item in all the stores. And that's the beauty of AI.
Yeah.
And being able to really give the customer what they want and how they want it. But obviously, we also have things that didn't succeed, but we are still optimizing. Now, we started with chatbots. I think everyone's trying to adopt chatbots and being able to address the customer 24/7. We have been able to see more than 83% success rate in handling customers' complaints or queries through chatbots. And that's an improvement from a 57% last year. So we're seeing AI improving, I'd say. And I think it's all about machine learning. So the more you feed the machine with data and the more you correct and optimize, the more the better the results are.
Yeah, it has even progressed. You mentioned chatbots, but now they're calling it agentic AI, right? Where it's more than it's Gen AI actually driving it and having almost more of a conversation. Yeah. But that's a fine line, right? Everything you're talking about, and Roy, I'm clear to hear your thoughts. This intelligence that we have on consumers as retailers, it can cause some concern. How do retailers continue to do that at scale and pace responsibly? There have been some horror stories. There was a well-known one, wasn't there, in America, where they congratulated her for being pregnant and her father didn't know. So these are things where it does step into a bit of a grey area. How are you guys making sure that we do that?
I think transparency is key here. And we've been very transparent in letting the customer know how we use the data and when do we use it. And when it's used in the right channels and for the right cause, I think the customer will be more than happy. But obviously, if you use it in the wrong channels, the wrong times, similar to the example you've just given, then it causes challenges and issues. So transparency is key. Two is we've got an audit committee that goes into each and every cycle of AI usage when it comes to using it or using the data generated from customers. Obviously, we don't do the same when it comes to products because that's data that belongs to BFL. But when it comes to customers or suppliers, then we make sure that it's properly audited and properly been communicated with customer or a supplier if used.
Roy, you're obviously advising these retailers day and daily. What is your sort of guidance to or some of the things that you're talking to the clients about and some of the things that they're thinking about when they're also discussing this problem?
We all know that AI is here and it's disrupting, if not largely disrupting, but at least influencing and touching on any and every business, even ours.
Yes.
What's interesting, what Ayman said, right? You've got your back end and your front end. The AI ability to influence and improve the way the back end operates is paramount, as Ayman said, right? It's about making sure you get what the customer needs when they need it. And so not only is that helping with customer experience and stickiness of the customer, but if we talk about sustainability as well, that also ensures that you're improving your footprint because you're making sure you're not overstocking certain areas. There's not wastage and so on. So really there's a lot of positive benefits out of AI. On the flip side, if you're looking at the front end, this is really, I think, where some of the risks come out. And based on the survey that we ran on our consumer survey, half, if not more than half, are comfortable using AI as a technology, or at least comfortable with retailers using AI, but for low-risk activities. So things like identifying products, recommendations. We talked about the chatbots, anything related to customer service. Those are all fine. But anything when it comes to actually transacting, where you then start to use a lot of information, I think people are still a bit wary of how that data is being used, what information you're taking from me, how private is that? And so it's going to be an evolution. Things are going to evolve over time. I'm sure when we speak in a year, in 5 years, 10 years, things are going to be very different. But I think as Ayman mentioned, right, it's important that these organizations understand that risk, have the right controls, governance around this, and make sure that they're introducing you have to test, right? You have to test, you have to try, you have to fail. But it's important to continue trying to invest in the space and if not always being at the forefront, at least understanding where that front is, where that is, and trying to make sure that you're adapting to those dynamics as you move forward.
Yeah, I think it's being mindful and aware And also educating the consumer, right? The more they're educated and aware and understand, then the more likely adoption will happen.
And the region, by the way, when you talk about regional consumers, they're very well adapted to these types of things. They're actually very happy to try new technologies and new applications on these technologies, probably much more so than what you see globally. And you see that in social media as well, right?
Yes.
I think one of the largest social media users are actually are consumers or individuals living in this part of the world. So there's a lot of opportunity here.
Yeah, I think we have the highest smartphone penetration globally, right across the region, or most over 100% penetration because everybody's got two phones. But you've touched nicely on that topic about social media, and I really wanted to talk to you both about that because I think we've got quite a lot to cover here. Now, digital native fashion retailers have cornered this very quickly, right? You know, Boohoo, Fashion Nova, they did their Cardi B collaboration, $1 million bucks on launch. You know, these are fantastic stories. The role that influencers play here in the market, though, might be slightly different. I'd love to hear your points of view, your experiences. Again, success and fails. We love this is all about sharing failures and learning. Roy, let me come to you first. What's going on with influencers in your world?
I think Brands for Less has been a leader when it comes to trying, testing, especially that we've utilized our founder and chairman today, Tawfiq, in our social media practices. And it started with a trial. We wanted to make sure that we no longer use influencers to influence people. We want to use authentic brand owners and brand projectors, as we said, to project the real value of the brand and Brands for Less. So we said, who can do it better than the co-founder and the chairman of the group? And he is charismatic, as you can see. So we've tested it, and I recall him posting that video on social media at 3 p.m., going to sleep at 5 p.m., and then waking up at 7 saying, "Oh, Ayman, I have 400,000 likes. What's going on?" I said, "Okay, then we've tested the right thing, and it's working." Today, he has more than 3 million followers across channels, and we've seen a tremendous growth on our social media pages as Brands for Less as well. Mm-hmm. So it worked. And then we started making sure that we utilize the right influencers, the authentic ones that are really fans of the brand, that really project the right values of the brand, and that can influence people that are more or less affiliated with the same brand concepts and DNA. And I think that's what matters. We tried in different countries. I'd name one. We tried when we started with Saudi, but we failed at the start. I mean, we said something's not going on well. I mean, we've set an ROI, but we're really too far.
Didn't see it.
So we started using the right influencers who fit the DNA, and we've seen a tremendous change in social media users. More attraction to the brand. We've seen a lot of people coming in saying, I think we are happy to be affiliated with Brands for Less. We want to be your influencers. So we started now taking that's another example of trying. And we started now taking customers to be our influencers and to influence other new customers. And I think that has been a great learning journey.
Yeah, bringing a bit of a family. But I think, when you're talking, I'm hearing again the challenge of trust. Yeah. That somebody's not just peddling something to you because they've been paid to do it, and having that relationship with that person. Roy, you have a few views on influencers and the role they play.
I want to touch on the point Ayman made, which is around authenticity, right? I think that is crucial, particularly after consumers try and test and experience how social media and what social media does in influencing their buying journey, right? Maybe just to touch on social media more broadly and how we see it, or what at least consumers are saying, what's important to them. So it's really around discovering new brands and then helping them make decisions, where I think we have about 3/4 of consumers in this region have used social media for those purposes versus 2/3 globally. So social media is a very important tool to get to consumers, to help them identify new brands. Mm-hmm. But as Ayman said, the authenticity of how to ensure that they're influencing them in the right way needs to be there. What we're not seeing as much today in this part of the world versus other places like, for instance, in Far East Asia, is the actual purchasing on social media. So that is still in its infancy here. There's been, based on our survey, more than half have actually had bad experiences doing that. And so the jump from discovery, exploring, to actually transacting on social media is still not there in this part of the world. Maybe will it come, will it not come? I think that's out. Don't know if somebody has an answer to that yet today. But there's definitely an issue with trust on, can I transact? And I've had bad experiences in the past doing that. So whether that can be solved or not on these social media platforms, not really sure. But again, I think a lot of brands or a lot of retailers like Brands for Less can use social media. They've got their own e-commerce platforms. People are very comfortable using e-commerce. Not only are they very comfortable using e-commerce, but using it on mobile now is even more prevalent than it used to be. And I think it's, compared to global consumers as well, regional consumers actually like purchasing on mobile.
Yeah.
So in the mobile, you've got your social media, you've got your e-commerce platforms. There's an ability actually to transact and do a lot of things in one place.
Yeah. But is that an influencer challenge, or is that a trust in social media challenge? You're talking now about the purchasing component. And, I've had two experiences where I've had my card hacked and have been told off by the bank for buying things on social media. And there is that data protection component. Now, like the GCC market is due to grow to 50 billion, right, by 2025, apparently. What are retailers going to do? And I think about this on a broad, this isn't for Brands for Less to solve, but for the retail industry as a whole to solve for this, to be able to maintain that sort of significant growth trajectory.
Yeah, now obviously, I think retailers are making sure that we have the right governance in place. So you have the DPO's in-house data protection officer, and then obviously you get the right consent from customers. And in addition to that, we are big believers of data minimization, which is basically feeding the right set of data to the right departments within the organization, rather than dumping data to each and every department. So we make sure that data is minimized. They require the right set of data to be able to churn and give the customer what they want. I think with all of these three pillars taken into play, I think retailers will be able to scale their usage of and utilization of data without impacting the customer negatively.
Nice. Roy, data protection. I think we've managed to address all of these components. Ayman, I've really enjoyed speaking to you. We've really covered a lot today. The critical role that trust, sustainability, AI is going to play in transforming the retail landscape. I think consumers will continue to demand more, and our retailers will champion the cause in terms of stepping up to meet that need, whilst maintaining trust and positioning us well for success in the future. I thank you both for your insights. It's been really interesting to talk to you and hear about some of the incredible things and what you're planning to do as you continue to grow beyond the GCC. And thank you to the listeners and the viewers for joining us today. Thank you.